Hi, VencoreWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Tuesday, December 16th. We have some showers headed our way here in the I-95 corridor associated with a warm frontal system. That warm front will increase our temperatures somewhat today and tomorrow as well, but then a cold frontal system will usher in colder air that will be noticeable by tomorrow night and on the day Thursday and Friday. This weekend, attention turns to the mid-Atlantic coastline. It looks like there will be the development of a storm. After it pulls out of the southern states towards the mid-Atlantic coastline, it could throw some snow or rain our way in the I-95 corridor in the Saturday night, Sunday time frame. It looks like this weekend storm threat will just be the beginning of a stormier and colder weather pattern. We talked about that yesterday. Lots of changes evolving around the world, both in the oceans and the atmosphere, that suggest a stormy and cold weather pattern begins this weekend and continues right through the rest of December and into the new year. Looks like there'll be another storm to deal with by around the middle of next week, perhaps Christmas Eve or so, which is on Wednesday, and then another storm following that by another 2 or 3 days. It's going to be an active period starting this weekend. Well, let's take a look at the immediate concern, and that is some shower activity later today and into tonight. This is the latest surface map. First of all, we have a warm frontal system extending out here from low pressure over the Midwest. This warm front will advance to the north and east today. Lots of clouds and some patchy fog around the I-95 corridor right now. It'll stay mostly cloudy. We'll take a look at the radar in a moment. There are some showers already across West Virginia and western Pennsylvania moving to the east. Then the cold frontal system will slide through early tomorrow. The cold front itself probably arrives on the dry side after the showers this afternoon and evening. Looks like it'll be mainly on the dry side tomorrow with the passage of the cold frontal system. Then colder air moves in for Thursday and Friday, and it looks like it'll stay cold this weekend when attention turns to the mid-Atlantic coastline. Well, before we focus in on the weekend storm threat and the longer-term pattern change, let's take a look at the current radar loop. Again, some showers and even some embedded heavier rainfall here across western Pennsylvania, West Virginia, move into the D.C. Region by the latter part of the morning, midday hours, into Philadelphia, southeastern part of Pennsylvania this afternoon, and later this afternoon across New York City, continuing up there right through the evening hours. Doesn't look like a major rain event, but there can be some brief downpours for a while associated with this advance of the warm frontal system followed by the cold front. Again, the best chance from midday on through the early evening hours along the I-95 corridor. All of it should pull out of here by late tonight, and partly sunny, breezy conditions expected on Wednesday along with the passage of a cold frontal system. Well, before we take a look at the weekend storm threat, I thought I'd jump ahead here. This is actually Christmas Eve, the evening of next Wednesday evening, and it's the 500 millibar height anomaly chart as predicted by the last night's 0Z GFS ensemble run. And it really depicts why I believe a colder and stormy pattern is setting up. The blues here represent a lower pressure compared to normal here in the 500 millibar level. So basically a deep trough here setting up in the eastern part of the country. Again, this is Wednesday night of next week, which happens to be Christmas Eve day. Notice here the reds up to the north across Greenland and eastern part of Canada. That's higher pressure than normal at the 500 millibar level. And this is a blocking type of pattern here that we've often talked about here at VencoreWeather.com. In fact, it was one of the major factors in our winter outlook depicting or indicating the potential for a colder and snowier winter than normal. Indeed, blocking patterns setting up here over the next several days, a deep eastern trough here in the eastern U.S. by the middle part of next week, ridging along the west coast, and a trough out over the Aleutian Islands here, the trough represented by the blues, and the oranges here, higher pressure than normal or ridging along the west coast. All of that suggests the strong likelihood for Arctic air masses to start moving back down from northern Canada into the northern U.S. and perhaps a stormy pattern here around the middle of next week. Let's now jump ahead to this, and actually go backwards a little bit to this weekend potential storm threat. Well, let's take a look at some of the computer forecast runs from last night for this weekend storm threat. First, we'll look at the operational version of the GFS model. There is an updated version called the GFS Parallel we'll look at next that will become the operational version. I believe the latest now is during January of this year. All these maps come from tropicaltidbits.com. This is for Saturday evening. We'll start with Saturday evening. And notice here, this is again the operational GFS from last night's 0Z model run. Low pressure pulling out of the southern states here. A decent amount of moisture ahead of it, and cold air anchored by some high pressure up to the north comes Saturday evening. Let's now walk through this. And this is 6 hours later. Another 6 hours. Basically, the storm ends up headed toward the Carolina coast, but it remains rather weak. According to the GFS, the operational GFS, some snow across the mid-Atlantic region, but certainly does not look like a powerful storm. However, this is one of the weaker solutions. Let's jump ahead another 6 hours. And here we go. Kind of a strange situation here where it starts to kind of amplify up to the north, even though the surface low pressure is down across the Carolinas. This is now early Sunday afternoon, and finally by Sunday evening, basically pulling off the mid-Atlantic coastline. So certainly some precipitation depicted here by the last night's 0Z GFS model run. Not a major event. However, the parallel version, which we'll look at next, certainly is a little bit more robust with its precipitation forecast. And here we go. This is beginning the same time period as before, Saturday evening, with the updated version of the GFS, the parallel version. A little bit more in the way of precipitation at the onset here across West Virginia, eastern Kentucky, low pressure along the Georgia coastline. Saturday evening, let's jump ahead 6 hours, and here you go, a pretty healthy looking area of snow as depicted here by the blues across Western Virginia, even right around into the DC area, West Virginia. Another 6 hours later, and that looks a little bit more robust in terms of precipitation amounts compared to the operational version of the GFS, and low pressure a little bit stronger. Now the GFS in general has had a bias over a long period of time, with a little bit too far to the south and east with coastal storms. It tends to correct itself to the north and west as the event approaches, and perhaps a little bit too weak on some coastal storms. So perhaps the GFS parallel is going to be improvement on those particular biases. Here we have a little bit healthier, a little bit stronger of a system. And now let's jump ahead another 6 hours to early Sunday afternoon. Pretty strong storm here, 1002 millibars here. Some snow up along the eastern part of Pennsylvania. And now let's take a look at the European ensemble run from last night. Well, with the European ensemble run, we only have a 24-hour increment here. We'll begin again the same time period as the other two model runs. Saturday evening system here along the Georgia, South Carolina coastline come Saturday evening, and 24 hours later by Sunday evening, the European ensemble run has a pretty decent low sitting off the mid-Atlantic coastline by a couple hundred miles, a 10008 low. Again, this is by Sunday evening, the GFS ensemble run, the European ensemble run. This European ensemble run actually has a little bit more in the way of precipitation compared to the European, operational model. So there's still certainly some discrepancies, still an indication of a mid-Atlantic storm this weekend, rain, snow, or a combination of the two along the I-95 corridor, probably looking in at the Saturday night, Sunday time frame. We'll, of course, increase our focus on the weekend storm threat over the next couple of days. A stormy, colder pattern looks like it's shaping up beginning this weekend and probably lasting right through till the new year and beyond that. is quite likely as well. That's it for now. For VencoreWeather.com, I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian.